What's going on, everybody, man? Welcome back. Part 13, The King's Bread.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting title.
Well, me and Ryan always try to have fun with titles.
Like the last one, The Sent Ones.
Yeah, so like every Monday morning I get a text from Ryan, who you can't see. He's actually behind the camera.
He's
right
behind
now.
the camera.
It would be weird if he was just walking in the background right now. So he is behind the camera. So every Monday morning I get a text from him that says, like, title, question mark, or what's your title for this week? And so we always have some fun ones. I try not to send, is it GIF or is it GIF?
GIF. Is it GIF, right?
Let's don't get off on that.
Sorry.
But sometimes I just send them one of those, and so
Hey, make it what you can.
yeah, make it what you can. And so we have it's fun with titles with Chad and Ryan every Monday morning.
We did have some Mortal Kombat.
We did have some
in there
Mortal
in the
Kombat.
beginning of Mark. So
Trust me, those came out in the GIF for sure. And so
Okay.
yeah, multiple times. Finish him. So it was So yes, we're talking about
The King's
the
Bread.
King's Bread.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. It was a good one. I know there was a lot of positivity.
Yeah.
There was a lot of there's a lot of feedback from this one because it really did. Like, it stepped on my
Yes.
toes a little bit too.
Yeah.
And so, do you feel like there was something that you could have elaborated more on, or you felt that you missed that you really wanted to just talk about?
I almost did it in the end when we were all praying together. But really the correlation between, it wasn't necessarily exactly where we were going to go. Like, we did what we wanted to do in the sermon,
Yeah.
but when we were praying at the end, we really prayed into the idea of eventually this king would sit down at a table
Yeah.
with another loaf of bread and break it and talk about himself. I think throughout the whole text, we mentioned Jesus being the living bread, that he's bringing the bread of life, and that's him, that he himself is that. And so it was certainly woven through the entire message. But we were able to kind of pray into it. So if you're watching the message, if the prayer is in it at the end, you'll hear a lot of that communion idea, is that Jesus, his body is the bread that's broken. It's blessed, raised up, and broken for us. And so there's a real gospel aspect to what's happening. But that is the work of the Messiah. That's the reason why I think bread is so important.
Yeah.
In the Bible.
There's a lot of mention of bread.
It's all through it.
Yeah, there's a lot of mention
And so it's all through it. It's all throughout the Bible. It's actually a very fascinating topic to think about of how often the idea of bread and the symbolism of bread that comes up in the Bible. And which is the reason why I really loved grabbing that powerful statement, sheep without a shepherd, from Jesus in this moment. And then his first move is to feed the sheep, which is in complete contrast to
Absolutely.
Ezekiel's prophecy and really announcing God's issue with those that are not really leading the sheep, and they're feeding themselves and they're not taking care of the sheep. And so that correlation I thought was really one of the main things I wanted to show, is Jesus is coming in and fixing that issue that has been an issue since forever.
Yeah.
That God's people have never had the perfect leader, the perfect king, the king that is perfection itself, and that's Jesus, because that's what we've been waiting on. And so, which is the reason why we pointed out the fact that Ezekiel mentions King David, but King David has long since been dead, and so he's speaking about Jesus. That's what he's doing. He's saying the Messiah is going to come, the one true king. So we've had a bunch of kings, people of God. We've had a bunch of kings, but none of them are like this king.
Yeah.
And then that's what I like about the fact that Mark gives us King Herod, this kind of wannabe
Yeah.
And that's one thing that you miss, because you've heard King Herod before. But what you miss is the King Herod in this text is like the down the line son, the seventh son of King Herod the Great, the one that we always think about. He's a nobody. He's a pretender. He just calls himself a king when he's really not. He has really no power to do anything, which is the silliness of the moment where he, in this kind of fake wannabe presentation of his own power, offers half the kingdom. What kingdom? You have none. And then it ends up with the death of John the Baptist. But now there's some powerful realities to John the Baptist that we did not talk about in this moment. It's we actually get it in several of the other Gospels as well, and there's some allusions to it later on, even in the book of Mark some. And so, but the death of John the Baptist is actually very, very significant as well. So there's two pretty significant things that are happening: Jesus with the bread and feeding the 5,000. And I'm hoping that our church kind of felt that. Is that this is a major moment, and it's not just major because Jesus fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish. But that it is, it's his nature as the Messiah. It is the characteristic of the Savior of the world. That's what he was going to do, the Messiah. And this is an allusion from the Old Testament over and over and over again, that the Messiah is going to do things like this. He's going to come in and he's going to feed the people. And so he's fulfilling that, showing his kingship there. And so I'm hoping we got the sense of how big this moment was and really saw Jesus for who he really is in this text. I hope it encouraged believers, and I hope that those that maybe are nominal believers or aren't believers really see that Jesus is really who even Ezekiel, thousands of years before this moment, knew that he was going to be. And so I hope we see that, and I hope we see the importance of it, because the disciples don't. In the text, they don't, and that's the reason why I wanted us to read the whole section, because it ends with him walking on the water, and they have no faith in him. They don't even recognize who he is, which is silly. Because they just saw him, and it's not like he's floating out there in a mask, right? You know what I'm saying? Like he's not out there in like the Scream mask from the movie, right? Floating around on the water. He's Jesus walking on the water, and they don't even recognize him. They freak out. They think it's a ghost, which makes no sense whatsoever. And the reason Mark gives us for why they don't see it this way and why they lack so much faith in this moment is because they didn't understand the loaves. And that part has always freaked me out. Because it makes the bread moment with Jesus so much different, is that the king and his bread go together. And there's something very, very deep and powerful there. But the one thing we did not talk about at all, so we mentioned the communion connection in the end as we were closing the service, that Jesus becomes the bread that's raised up, lifted up, and broken for us. We mentioned that in the very end. The one thing we don't talk about is the idea that when John the Baptist dies, it's really the end of the Levitical priesthood from the Old Testament. And then it's Jesus stepping in as our great high priest. It's really the passing of the torch, if you will, from the Old Testament book of the law, the Old Covenant, to Jesus, the New Covenant. So if you know your Bible pretty well, John the Baptist at one point will ask, send word to Jesus, are you the one? And the reason why he asked a question like that is because he's like, hey, if you're not the one, then I know I'm getting out of prison. I'm not going to die in here. So this is pre-dancing girl, King Herod, fallen victim to that moment. This is pre that. John's in prison, goes, send word to him. Ask him, are you the one that we've been looking for? Are you the Messiah? Are you the one? And because John knows, if you're not, I'm getting out of this joint because I got things to do. I'm the prepare the way guy. I'm the end of the bloodline of the Levitical priesthood. I'm going to be the one that prepares the way for the Lord to show up. And so if you're not the one, then I ain't dying in here. I got to get out. So then I know, and I'm confident. But the word that Jesus sends back to him is actually, he quotes the book of Isaiah. The blind are seeing.
Yeah.
The deaf are hearing. The lame are walking, right? He's anointed me to preach good news, right? And so you just go tell him, here's what's happening. And he lines it out saying, all of these markers of what the Messiah would do, I'm doing it. And so that's what I love. So Jesus doesn't go, yeah, go back and tell him, yes, I am the one. No, he just goes, you go back and tell him all of this stuff is happening. All of this stuff is lining up. Because then John's going to know that when you tell him that all of this stuff is lining up, you'll know. And so for John, he knows when that moment comes, I'm done.
Yeah.
And so we don't get to see that kind of moment here. We just get a flashback of John the Baptist dying, and how he dies. I mean, in this really, trickery, he dies. But really, it's super significant because it's John the Baptist, kind of the final moment of, yes, Jesus is the one. Because if he's not, John the Baptist is coming out of that prison, out of the bondage, because he's got work to do, because the Messiah is coming and he's the forerunner. Yeah. He's the one that's announcing it. So, but Jesus is the one. And so John the Baptist loses his head for it. Yeah. And because of it. And so that's significant. It's a transfer of old covenant, that's kind of this end of this, to the Messiah has now shown up on the scene. And so it's actually a very beautiful thing that Mark gives us. And I tried to spend a little bit more time on the contrast between this fake king and our real king. This fake king that his rule ends with not caring for the people, doing his own thing for his own significance, and it ends in death. Where we have Jesus, where it ends in life. Yeah. And so I really wanted us to see the contrast. But there's some really cool kind of underneath stuff happening with John the Baptist that we don't really, I didn't think that it would be absolutely critical or necessary to our conversation on Sunday about what's going on. But it's actually pretty cool to think about what's happening underneath with John the Baptist. Is the reason why he gives his head is because there's this transitional idea that John the Baptist's work is done. Yeah. The Messiah is here. Yeah. And so there's no other work for John the Baptist to do. Absolutely. His work is done. Yeah. And that's very significant, I think, but of course we never got into that. We didn't talk about that, but it's really interesting to mention here is that there is some pretty kind of powerful ideas that are happening with that, which I think is cool to watch that transition happen, and so Mark gives us that in this moment as kind of a flashback of what's happening, but you actually get a little bit more detail about that idea in some of the other Gospels. You get a little bit more kind of insight into some of that stuff that's happening. And so, but like I said, I love the fact that the significance of Jesus and the feeding of the 5,000 is in every Gospel. Yep. And then he's not done with bread. It's going to come back up. Yeah. Like a chapter or two later,
there's again.
It's coming back up again. Yes. And so he's not going to let it go. Yeah. And so he's going to continue to move in that vein. And so, we'll get a chance to see him, do it again, do it for a second time. It's kind of, I'm hoping that the scene later on won't be seen as the JV version of the feeding of the 5,000, like it's the younger brother version of that miracle, because it's not. It's a continuation of what he's doing, and so. It's kind of an encore performance of Jesus saying, I'm the King, I'm the Messiah who's come to lead my people differently and to lead them into what God has always intended them to be led into, what he's intended from even the very beginning in the garden, what the plan has always been. And so it's going to kind of be an encore. He's going to curtain call it and get out there and do it again.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get a chance to see that again and kind of see again some of the significance that's in it and what he's doing. And so I think that we need to keep our eyes open to kind of watch our King move and how he leads and what marks his ministry, what marks his characteristics, and then just see what he does, because it's pretty powerful what's happening, especially in this kind of setup of the text, because we're gonna get into it pretty quick, moving into things like Holy Week and things like that at the end of the book. We're getting there pretty fast here. Like we're moving pretty quick. He's gonna actually start foretelling of his death and resurrection really soon. I mean, by the end of 8, he's going to be talking about death and resurrection. Absolutely. Like by the end of 8, he's getting there. So I just want us to be patient. I think that's my hope, is that we'll be patient and let our eyes really take in who our King is. Absolutely. Because he's doing a pretty good job at showing us, in the text, he's doing a pretty good job at letting us know who he is. And I don't want us to miss it. I want us to really take it in, full on, take it in for who he is. Anyways, that's my hope. So, but we could have had a lot of fun with the John the Baptist thing. Like, we could talk more about that. Yeah. I just felt like the way that Mark approaches it, I want to stay true to that the best that I can. I don't want to go too far. Like I mentioned with the feeding of the 5,000, I talked a little bit about John 6. So we went to John's version of that. But really, if you go John's version of that, I think Matthew's version of that, I think certainly you find out that Jesus is getting the news about the death of John the Baptist. Yeah. That's what almost prompts him to go and get rest and get away. He needs a break because now he's just heard that John the Baptist is dead. And so he's saddened. He's messed up over that. And so he wants to go across. And so then when he gets to the other side, he's wanting to get away because his cousin is dead. Mm-hmm. But even more so than that, this gospel forerunner is gone and dies in a horrific way. And he's saddened. He needs some alone time. He needs to kind of get away. And he gets to the other side and the people are there and he's compassionate. He wipes the tears and he engages the people. Yeah. And that's one thing we don't talk about either, because Mark doesn't give us that aspect of it, that he's getting the news, but Mark is following the others as well. So see, John the Baptist it's a big deal. This is a big moment. Mark's mentioned him earlier in the book, like the rest of the Gospels do. And then he's mentioning his death here because John the Baptist is a pretty strong figure in the beginning of the ministry of Jesus and in that transition from old covenant to new covenant. And then also Jesus' love for John the Baptist, which we don't get a chance to really see in the book of Mark. But see, we could have went there, but I just want to try to stay right there, because Jesus' understanding of the death of John the Baptist, but then his willingness to set aside his broken heart over the death of John the Baptist to then move with compassion towards the people. It's such a beautiful thing for him to go, John is dead, but these people are like sheep without a shepherd. Yeah. So that's why I'm here. He wipes the tears and gets in.
Keeps going. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something we could have mentioned as well, but we didn't.
It's just a beautiful moment.
It's just so
of his grace.
Yeah. It is a big
mercy.
This moment is huge. Yeah. There's a lot of things that are surrounding the moment of feeding the 5,000 that if you don't read it in context, you'll miss it. Yeah. And you'll just think, hey, that's a great miracle. It's so deep. It's so much deeper than that. There's a lot of things going on in that moment for Jesus, in his own heart with Jesus, what he's doing for the people, the connection with Old Covenant, the connection with the failure of leadership for God's people up to this point, to this transition of kingship and this comparison of what he's going to do. It's amazing. It's so much deeper, and I think sometimes it gets lost because we don't really look at it as a collective, which is why I love doing what we did. I know it was a lot of text. Like poor Katie Jo, had to read,
great job,
like a quadrillion verses.
Yeah.
but it's a lot of verses, but it's to show us the whole movement, really, to see the moment for what it is. And I don't want us to miss that.
Well, and I think I loved your context of how you pointed out the idea of we usually tend to focus on the miracle. We focus on the miracle, and then we shift straight over to him walking on water and the disciples freaking out.
Yeah.
And then he gets in the boat, everything, and then we talk about, and then I think it's in most of the Gospels, they talk about Peter getting out of the boat.
Yeah.
And then we focus on that portion about faith, but you kind of brought it up, no, it was doubt. A lot of it was doubt.
Yeah.
But then all of it points back to the feeding of the 5,000, and we don't focus on the context
and we miss it.
Those are really connected.
And because we almost, and I'm not saying that it's wrong to preach them separate. No, you can preach the moment separate.
Yes.
But that's what I love about preaching them together, because they're all together. Because it's literally moving together.
Yeah.
And so now you get a chance to see, if you just preach the 5,000 and then set it aside and not thinking about it again and read about the moment with him walking on water, you'll miss that little phrase at the end. It's because they didn't understand the loaves. And you're like, okay, wait a second. I've got these two pieces.
Yes.
And now when I put them together, I see this this whole message, this whole thing. And then I tack on the John the Baptist moment that Mark gives us. And now all of a sudden I'm starting to see this fuller, more rich picture, this deeper picture of what Jesus is doing, that he's not just the miracle man, he's got a plan.
Yeah.
He's not just a magician walking around doing tricks.
Yeah.
He's got a plan of communicating via miracles, via teaching, via his characteristics.
Yeah.
He's got a plan to show them that he is the one that they're looking for.
Yeah.
And everything that you're looking for is satisfied in him. Mm-hmm. And that's what he's communicating. That's what he's doing. And you miss that if you only look at it from one little box of a moment, and you just go, wow, you fed the 5,000. Wow. I mean, wow. And it is wow. But it can be wow, and then you walk away and not really get the significance. And that's why I kept using the word revolutionary.
Yeah.
He's beginning a revolution. I mean, it's starting. It's going. And then the people around him find themselves very inadequate when they stand next to him. And then that's kind of his point, you know. And I think we're meant to feel that.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus is so great, and what am I doing around him? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think Jesus is like going, yes. Yeah. Now you're getting closer, right? You can't do anything, but I'm here and I can do everything.
Yeah.
But I want to do it in and through you. And so we get a chance to see that happen. Our King is working that way. Our King doesn't come in to just conquer for himself. He says, I want you with me, and I want you to be involved in it. So what do you got? Well, show me what you have. Well, this is all we've got. Yeah, that's pitiful. All right, let me make it awesome. You know, you're pitiful. Let me make it awesome. You know, and so we really could have spent a lot more time on just that aspect as well. But I love just seeing it all together.
Yeah,
comparison of the King, our inadequacies, and Jesus' ability to move with it, and then the disciples' lack of faith in him to not see him for who he actually is, but he's a ghost on the water that's going to kill him. All right, so it's so interesting to watch the movement, and so anyway, so hopefully everybody doesn't get too messed up over the length sometimes of the text that we're doing. Honestly, you should be thankful because we're moving faster when we do that. And so it's just a lot more information, but I think it's beautiful if we'll just be patient. And again, I think that's my hope as the pastor of the people of Freedom Life Church, and anybody that gets a chance to watch and interact with us, is if we'll just be patient and let ourselves really full on see Him, take in all of the glory and the beauty of our King as He's moving and as He's walking, as He's showing us who He is through the scriptures in the book of Mark. I think it's beautiful, and I don't think we'll be disappointed in what we see if we'll just be patient and let it unfold in front of us.
That's good. And
really see it. I think it'll be good. So
it's gonna be good. Yeah. So just keep following.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say. Keep following. Keep trucking along.
Yeah.
Join us in Mark if you haven't caught the rest or the beginnings of Mark. Go back and watch it. Catch up, because we're not stopping.
No.
We're not stopping.
We're gonna keep pushing forward.
It's gonna be so good. On another note, baptisms. They're still available. If you want to be baptized this Sunday, sign-up sheets are online on our website, or you can go to our app, FLC Buoy, on the Google Play Store, Apple App Store, and fill out the information. We want to be able to do that with you as your next steps in faith, and we want to be a part of that. So if you want to do that, go forth and sign up. But if not, we'll catch you guys next week.
See you.